When I was in Iraq a couple of years, a year and a half ago, Prime Minister, I asked him the question about the oil and how about paying for some of this nation-building, military, all the things America is doing. And he literally was very vocal about that Iraq would not pay the United States a dime for helping them liberate their country and rebuild their country. So I think that might still be his position. I'd like to look at this a little bit bigger. No question about Iraq is back in, al-Qaeda is back in Iraq. Maliki, the government, are they playing both sides? Are they wanting the United States to help them to defeat al-Qaeda, which is on the rise, no question about it, so that we can do their work for them so they can pivot toward Iran, and Iran come in and Iraq be a new coalition, so to speak, and the United States is still the bad guy in the neighborhood. I would like your opinion on that. I fear this possibility, so I'd like to know what you experts think about that.
Mr. Chairman, if I could offer some thoughts on that matter. It is certainly the case that the Iraqi government would like our help dealing with al-Qaeda. I think that if we offered to take care of al-Qaeda for them, they'd be more than glad for that. It's also the case that Iran wields a great deal of influence in Iraq, largely because we've abdicated our influence in the country, and Iran has lots of different ways to do so. That said, I think it important that in my own experience, both watching Iraq and also my own interactions with Prime Minister Maliki, I do not believe that this is a man who is an eager ally of Iran. In fact, my experience with him is he really dislikes the Iranians. He is very afraid of the Iranians. He is very much an Iraqi nationalist. He'd like to separate himself from the Iranians if he could. But since there's nobody really pushing on the other side, he doesn't feel like he's got a whole lot of help. And I also want to be clear, he makes a lot of mistakes himself. He overreacts. He goes after his internal rivals in an undemocratic fashion that has alienated both his internal rivals and their external supporters, and it has left him with little choice but to turn to Iran.
Anybody else want to weigh on that? Just briefly, Ms. Lewis.
Mr. Chairman, I would agree. I think we should consider the possibility that Maliki's fear of al-Qaeda—
Could you use your microphone? We can't hear you.
Yes, of course. I think we should consider the possibility that Maliki's fear of al-Qaeda is driving him closer to Iran as we craft what we might do about it.
So do you see a scenario that I mentioned as something that we should be concerned about, that he's pivoting to Iran, wants us to get rid of al-Qaeda with him, and then he's buddy-buddy with Iran? Is that something that we should be concerned about, the United States?
Mr. Chairman.
Or not?
Excuse me.
Go ahead,
Mr.
Dr. Baumann.
We should absolutely be concerned about it, but the recognition is what he wants is a high degree of independence and autonomy to do what he wants. And right now, Iran is the dominant power in Iraq, and he can't do that. We need to have our own presence there, and that's an economic presence, that's a political presence, and a security presence, and then he'll try to play us off. He's a cynical politician, he's ruthless, he's conniving, but right now he has to work with the Iranians because he has no choice. We need to give him some other options in order for this to even be a possibility.
All right. The United States is at a point here, we all know where we are on the, as far as U.S. involvement. To defeat al-Qaeda in Iraq and be an influence in Iraq, are we just there to stay? I mean, are we there? Is Iraq going to become the 51st state? Are we just going to be there forever? People I represent are concerned, like a lot of Americans, about all the money that's gone to Iraq, nation built, all those things. So al-Qaeda is the problem. We're saying we're going to help them. How long is this going to take? Dr. Baumann, look into your crystal ball. Help us out with this.
Sir, I don't think there's any chance that we're going to go in big to Iraq. So the question to me is, are we able to restore some influence? Part of that's through arms sales. Part of that is through renegotiating diplomatic agreements. Part of it is through covert action and intelligence cooperation. We can get something, sir.
Does Iraq have the money to buy our equipment, or do we need to continue just to give it to them?
Iraq increasingly has the money, but we want them to have our equipment. That's a good thing for us as well as for them.
All right, Dr. Knights, last comment on this question.
Yeah, Iraq is economically not a Bahrain or a Yemen or a Jordan requiring the same kind of military assistance to buy our stuff, but they're not a Saudi or a UAE yet either. The country is totally wrecked.
All right. Thank you very much. Chair will yield 5 minutes to Mr. Connolly.
I thank